2010. We also bring to you the power struggle and intrigues that followed the sickness and death of the president, and the refusal to allow Vice President Goodluck Jonathan to see his boss despite all requests to that effect. Jonathan was only able to see his remains on the day the president passed on. Welcome to this edition of Back in History. Umaru Musa Yar-Adua was elected into office as Nigeria's president in 2007. He took the oath of office and allegiance in May of the said year. He was expected to be in office for 4 years, and by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, he was entitled to run for a second term of 4 additional years, which would have enabled him to remain in office for a cumulative period of 8 years. Unknown to Nigerian citizens, Yar-Adua was not going to complete even the first term, let alone contest for a second term. Death was determined to strike before the end of his first tenure, but the date and time was not known until it struck on the 5th day of May 2010, barely 3 years into the administration of President Yar-Adua. The known history of Yar-Adua's sickness dates back to his time as governor of Katsina State. Yar-Adua served as governor of the said state from 1999 to 2007, a total of 8 years. During this time, Yar-Adua is reported to have taken ill along the way. The sickness was serious, and he had to be flown to Germany, where he was hospitalized and closely managed by a team of experts for 6 months. It is said that he underwent a kidney transplant during the 6-month stay in Germany. He, however, became well and returned to work in Katsina. He completed his tenure as governor, and there appeared to be no further cause for alarm about his health. In the build-up to the 2007 presidential election in Nigeria, and as President Olusegun Obasanjo was preparing to exit office, several persons such as Donald Duke, Victor Atta, Peter Odili, and many others declared interest in the #1 office in Nigeria, but for Obasanjo, the most preferred candidate for the top job was Umaru Musa Yar-Adua, whom Obasanjo described as a man of integrity and deep contentment. Obasanjo then rallied support for Umaru, who then emerged as the flag bearer of the ruling party at the time, the People's Democratic Party. Campaigns were conducted, followed with election. In the end, Umaru Musa Yar-Adua emerged as the winner of the presidential election. In the course of the campaigns, some persons were concerned about the health status of Umaru Yar-Adua and his ability to withstand the demands of the office of president. In one of the campaign grounds, Yar-Adua was absent, thereby fueling more suspicion about his health. President Olusegun Obasanjo was at the campaign ground and had to place a telephone call to Yar-Adua, who was on his hospital bed outside the country. The call was placed on speakers, and Yar-Adua responded by saying that he was doing fine. Several persons became skeptical at that moment and moving forward. The elections held, and Yar-Adua won. He was sworn in May 2007 with Dr. Goodluck Jonathan as his vice president. Goodluck Jonathan would later succeed Yar-Adua upon the unexpected demise of Yar-Adua in May 2010. The first known incident of Yar-Adua's health challenge at the Aso Rock Villa, the official residence of Nigeria's president, was in April 2008. Earlier in the month, the president started taking some malaria drugs that had been prescribed for him by his doctor for the treatment of malaria. A few days after, it was noticed that there was no improvement, for which reason another medication was prescribed for the president. This new prescription brought relief to the president, but had an allergic reaction on him. The president's face became visibly swollen. The situation became worse that the president had to visit the National Hospital, Abuja, where the chief medical director, Dr. Olusegun Ajuwon, attended to the president in his bid to tackle the situation. As at April 12, 2008, the president was in a very bad shape, as his face had swollen so badly and so visibly. Unfortunately, this was the date scheduled for the signing of the annual budget after months of foot-dragging with the National Assembly. The press, with their cameras, had already been invited to be at the Aso Rock Villa by 10 a.m. for the budget signing formalities, yet the president's face was swollen and thus not good enough for the public cameras. The presidency was thus in a dilemma of how to handle the situation and avoid embarrassing pictures in the public space. The situation was however managed through, with government photographers only allowed to take shots, and the budget was signed, but it was clear that the president was in a serious health challenge which required urgent medical attention. Preparations were then made, and the president was then flown out to Germany for treatment. What followed was a public announcement from the office of the Chief Press Secretary to the President, Segun Adeniyi, who announced that, quote, "The budget has been signed by the President, and the President will leave for Wiesbaden, Germany to see his private physicians for a medical review of an indisposition believed to be due to an allergic reaction," unquote. This journey to Germany turned out to be a long journey, and later on, a journey of no return. President Yar-Adua arrived Germany with his personal aides. He was admitted into the hospital, and in few days, there was some improvement in his health. He stayed in the German hospital and was well enough in about 2 weeks to return to Nigeria to continue his work. He was received at the airport by a retinue of aides, state governors, and other officials. But one thing was certain: the president's health was in need of close monitoring, and his work schedule was going to be affected. The demands of the office of president, with long hours of meeting and long hours of work, may have triggered his health situation, yet he still had time to serve out his tenure as President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria. Yar-Adua settled into office and went about his work without any further public concern. Not long after, precisely on August 20th, 2008, the President informed members of the Federal Executive Council that he would be traveling to Saudi Arabia later that day to perform the Lesser Hajj, the Umrah. He said he would leave the council chambers by lunchtime, and that when the members returned in the afternoon, the Vice President would be presiding. The President then departed the country for the said Lesser Hajj. The President was expected to return to the country in 4 days' time,